Give us what you took away from this announcement and what was said around the announcement, perhaps even as important as the announcement itself.
So I think the president made a good choice. Jay Powell, in the fullness of it all, has done an excellent job at the Fed. Lael Brainard is an experienced and capable monetary policy operator. I think it's a good team. It's a team that'll have some creative tension in areas like regulation, in areas like the environment, but I think it's a very good team at the helm of the Fed, and I was glad to see the president's choice. I was equally glad to see what the president said in announcing them, what Chairman Powell said, what nominated Vice Chair Brainard said, because they all recognized what has been true for some time, that overheating and inflation are right now the central macroeconomic problems facing the American economy, and there was no good outcome for the American population, for the American middle class that is so dear to President Biden, without taking steps to get inflation under control. And I think that the rhetoric you saw from Chairman Powell and Vice Chair Brainard portends a new era here for the Fed. I think the question the Fed is now managing is not, do we have an overheating problem? Can we bet with Team Transitory? They know we do have an overheating problem and that they can't place their bet with Team Transitory. They've got a new problem, and it's a very complicated one, and I very much hope they'll be very thoughtful about it, because there are no easy answers. The new problem is, how do you land this economy softly? That got corroborated by the numbers we saw. PCE deflator was very strong. Even more important, the income and spending numbers were stronger than we expected. The revision of the national accounts revised upwards how much income consumers had. That means it revised upwards how much pent-up savings ready to spend they have. So all the numbers are pointing towards a lot of strength. All the numbers are pointing towards limited capacity. You know, we've been saying for a long time now that vacancies are record highs, quits are record highs. We got another number in that direction this morning. Unemployment insurance claims lowest since 1969. And of course, we've got a lot more people than we did then, so that makes it an even stronger statement. So we're looking at a challenge of slowing an overheating economy. And we know from the research of a number of people that that's a very difficult thing for a central bank to do. It's particularly difficult when, frankly, it's late to the party to recognize the overheating, and when they have only an instrument, monetary policy, that works quite slowly through the economy with lags of 9 months to a year. The Fed very foolishly asserted that it wouldn't ever start raising monetary policy until we were at full employment, which, given the lags, was much too strong a statement. And they're going to have to figure out how to maneuver within their framework, which, when it was put forward, didn't contemplate anything like this moment to provide the necessary gradual restraint. If they overdo it on restraint, the economy could easily tip over, especially given how much euphoria there is built into markets. So it's not going to be an easy set of maneuvers for the Fed. But they now, I think, recognize what they're dealing with in a way that as recently as a couple months ago in Jackson Hole, they did not.
So, Larry, it's clear to me, I think to everyone at this point, that many people have moved in your direction. You were very early on saying we're putting too much money in the fiscal stimulus in the last package. You're going to have inflation. We now have inflation without a doubt. But I wonder if you are that confident that everyone agrees with you that there's going to be overheating that really needs to be addressed right now. Because we do have some people. We talked to Paul Krugman. You and I talk about him regularly here. You know him well. I know you respect him. We talked to him this week, and he said, yes, absolutely, there's inflation. Yes, there should be tapering. But we've got 2 or 3 factors that make us less concerned about it. Number one is fiscal stimulus is working its way out, not necessarily. We're going to be contracting on the fiscal stimulus given where we were. We've got a COVID out there that's undetermined. And in fact, the supply chain thing is getting better. So there are some people who think, yes, there's a problem, but it may solve itself to some extent.
Paul's been wishful thinking on this for 9 months, and I think he still is. With respect to the fiscal policy, we've still got very substantial levels of spending to come from the fiscal policy we've already done, and we've got new fiscal legislation that'll increase the deficit by $160 billion in the legislation if it's not amended in the Senate. The forecasts, which call for continued reductions of a substantial magnitude in unemployment, even given the super high vacancy rate, so further tightening, already assume all that Paul is saying about the fiscal policy. So I think he's pretty unlikely to turn out to be right in his fiscal policy argument. Nobody knows what's going to happen about COVID. What's kind of remarkable about people like Paul and some of the others who have just, I think, been deniers and hopers on this is that if COVID's bad, they think that's a reason for more stimulus because we need to support the economy through COVID. And if COVID's good and goes away, they think that's a reason for more stimulus because we're going to get more supply. And they try to have it every which way. I think that COVID has left scars. The labor force participation rate is not going back to where it was anytime soon. Reams of empirical data suggests that the best predictors for knowing what's going to happen to wage behavior actually come from the demand side, come from things like the vacancy rate. Every business you talk to says the same thing. We have a shortage of labor. We're going to have to pay wages. We've done about all we can with recruitment bonuses and the like. We've got rising costs, and we've got a lot of pricing power to push on those rising costs. How, in the face of the universality of anecdote, anybody but an academic economist could say that this is all going to recede in the next 6 months, I cannot, in all honesty, fathom. And I think it's very interesting. I started to see today, reading some of the commentaries, people saying, well, the supply chain problems are going to be with us till early 2023. This is like being at the airport on Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, and the flight's going to be at 6 o'clock, and then it's going to be at 8 o'clock, and then it's going to be at 8:30, and then it's going to be at 9:30, and then it's going to be at 11. Yeah, sooner or later, we're going to work through all of this, but I think we're still in the early innings of inflation pressure. And what I have noticed very strongly is the closer you get to people who are in the actual economy, people who are hiring, producing, and pricing, the more scared they are. And the people who are most serene are, respectfully, the people who are most remote from the actual experience of the economy, sitting in their studies.